These sheet pan protein pancakes rule, and 3 pieces will get you over 30 grams of protein. Instead of laboring away over a hot stove, these only require you to dump some batter into a pan and send it on vacation to the oven for 20 minutes. Who doesn't love a good protein pancake? I think I've got the best protein pancake recipe on the internet. I shared the recipe video last summer for how I batch prepped them for Snack City. But there are 2 minor challenges that come with that recipe. Number 1, it requires 2 different kinds of protein powder which not everybody wants to buy and keep in their pantry. And number 2, it requires you to cook them individually, so if you want to stockpile a large batch, it's going to take you a good amount of time. So I thought, what if we could make a protein pancake where you don't need any protein powder and you don't have to stand in front of the stove to cook them? Enter the sheet pan protein pancake. You can batch prep these more easily than the traditional method to stock up Snack City in your freezer and have breakfast already taken care of each morning. Here's how you make them. For this video, I'm going to be doubling the standard recipe, which requires 2 half-size sheet pans. These are both 17 by 11. Place a blender container over a scale and to it add 2 cups or 480 grams of 2% milk, 2 2/3 cups or 600 grams of low-fat cottage cheese, 1/2 of a cup or 120 grams of unsweetened applesauce, 1/4 of a cup or 60 grams of maple syrup, and then 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of vanilla extract or vanilla powder. Cap that container, throw it on the motor, and let this spin for about 30 seconds to emit it until the cottage cheese is completely liquefied. Once it's finished, you can just set it aside until we are ready to incorporate it later. Next, you're going to place a large bowl over the scale and pour in 2 1/4 cups or 540 grams of liquid egg whites. You'll whisk these vigorously until they are nice and foamy. You're not looking for stiff peaks here like you're making a meringue, just get some air incorporated into them. These egg whites will provide some lift to our pancakes, and since they are also essentially just liquid protein, it's also going to boost that protein value. Next, you'll place another bowl over a scale and add to it 2/3 of a cup or 92 grams of powdered milk. Its purpose is for some extra protein in the absence of any protein powders, and it can also help with browning. Next to the bowl is 4 cups or 480 grams of oat flour. Now, if you don't have oat flour, you can make it yourself by just dropping some oats in the blender and turning it on until they are pulverized down into a powder. Then comes our leavening agents, 2 teaspoons or 8 grams of baking powder, and 1/2 of a teaspoon or 2 grams of baking soda. And lastly, you'll add in about a 1/2 teaspoon or 2 grams of salt. Now, I mix all these dry ingredients together in this bowl I chose that is entirely too small to ensure that all the ingredients are evenly distributed throughout. Now we can combine it all together to form the batter. I'm going to give the egg whites one more quick whisk just to reform any dissolved foam, and then pour my milk mixture in and stir that together. Then while constantly whisking, I'll slowly add in the dry ingredients bit by bit to form the batter. A question I'm sure many of you have, and a question that I asked myself when I was testing this recipe, is why can't I just put this all in the blender to form the batter? The first reason is because there's just too much volume, it won't fit. And the second reason is because when I tested it out, it led to a pancake that wasn't as fluffy. I'm not your father. I'm not going to stop you if you want to throw everything in the blender, but just know that if you do, your product is likely going to come out a little bit denser. And now that our batter is formed, let's get this show on the road. Get out your 2 half sheet pans and line them both with parchment paper to prevent any sticking. If you tear off 2 sheet pan sized pieces and then fold them at the edges where it meets the lip, it will make things a bit easier when it comes time to pour in the batter. With the parchment paper in place, give each sheet pan a hearty spray of oil and then divide the batter evenly between the 2. This will be the hardest part of the whole recipe. Trying to dump this batter evenly from the bowl into each sheet pan, you kind of just have to use your intuition. My strategy was to go back and forth, pouring a bit into each sheet pan at a time, and then painting it into the corners and just eyeballing it to where I felt like it was even. Because I have 2 identical sheet pans, I can use my scale and weigh them to see how close I got, and not bragging, but I almost got it perfect. Again, not bragging, but if any hot ladies are watching, pretty good, right? Once all of the batter is divided into the pans, you'll want to spread it out across each sheet pan so that you have an even layer throughout. These pans will then take their trip to the oven at 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius for about 20 minutes. And wow, would you look at that? With Hollywood magic, they're done instantly. In my experience, the pan on the bottom shelf might take a little bit longer to finish cooking, but as long as it's set in the center and it's firm to the touch, it is ready to be pulled out. Before you go cutting into these, let them sit on the counter to cool for a couple of minutes first. When you are ready to cut, I have found the easiest way to do it is with a pizza cutter. Pull that parchment paper from your sheet pan and lay it down on your cutting surface, and then roll the pizza cutter across to create your pieces. Each tray will get cut into 12 equal pieces, so to do that, you can place the long side of the rectangle facing you, cut it in half once, and then cut each of those halves in half again turn the rectangle 90 degrees, and cut it into thirds. Each of these pieces comes in at around 138 calories with 10.5 grams of protein. The next step with our sheet pan pancakes is to prepare them for long-term storage in the freezer. It's best to freeze these uncovered in the freezer until each piece is frozen solid so that they have the chance to freeze individually. I like to place a wire rack down on a sheet tray to raise them up off the surface to allow for air circulation to hit all the sides. This will also help any moisture that is on the bottom of the pieces dry out to prevent any freezer burn. For the second tray, I'll place another wire rack down right over the first layer and then stack the remaining pancakes right on top. Then I created some space in my freezer and I took that tray, placed it inside, and I let this go until they were frozen solid. While those were freezing, I decided to make another batch while I still had all the ingredients out, this time a chocolate chip and a berry version. The process is the exact same. All the wet ingredients into the blender, I whipped up some egg whites, all the dry ingredients together in a bowl, and then everything comes together to form the batter. Sheet pans are lined with parchment paper, batter gets dumped in, not bragging again, another perfect pour. You guys know the drill. The left pan got topped with about 100 grams of chocolate chips that I sprinkled over, and then the right pan got topped with 150 grams of sliced strawberries and 150 grams of blueberries. Same 375 degree Fahrenheit, 190 Celsius oven for about 20 minutes for each of these. These both get cut into 12 equal pieces. For the chocolate chip ones, which all fell to the bottom, which is why you can't see them, each piece has around 181 calories with 10.5 grams of protein, and for the berry ones, each piece has around 151 calories with 10.5 grams of protein as well. These two trays will join my other two in the freezer to flash freeze until they are frozen solid. A few hours later, I came back to my trays to pack them away for long-term storage. Everything that I put into Snack City goes in one of these Zwilling Fresh and Safe vacuum bags, and would you look at that? They're the sponsor of today's video. Anytime I make a big batch of food to store in my freezer, I obviously want to make sure that it stays fresh for as long as possible. Freezer burn is the #1 enemy of Snack City, and one of the best ways to combat freezer burn is to vacuum seal your food. These Fresh and Safe vacuum bags are perfect for Snack City because they have a zip top that allows you to get in and out of the bags while still being able to create that vacuum seal. I put roughly 8 to 10 pieces of these sheet pan pancakes into each bag, closed them up, and then used the vacuum pump to take out all of the air. The flash freezing step we did earlier ensures these pieces will not freeze together or get smushed when we use the vacuum to take out all the air. Zwilling is offering the US-based members of TMPM Nation who buy their 7-piece vacuum starter set 10 extra medium bags for free if you use the code MEALPREP at checkout. These Fresh and Safe vacuum bags can help your food stay fresh for up to 5 times longer, and once my pancakes were all safely packed away, I moved them into Snack City in my freezer for long-term storage. When it comes time to reheat your pancakes, you can pull a bag from the freezer, toss a few on a plate, and microwave them for 1 to 2 minutes until they're hot. Then you can reseal and revacuum the bags and toss it back into Snack City. I topped mine with some sliced strawberries, about 1.5 tablespoons of syrup, and a little dollop of whipped cream on top. For the 3 pieces of pancake alone without any of the toppings included, we're looking at a total of about 414 calories with 31 grams of protein. One of the nice things I've noticed about these sheet pan pancakes is that they don't require as much syrup as normal pancakes do. There have been multiple times in the past where I've made regular pancakes and put what I felt like was a necessary amount of syrup on top, only to look at the scale to see how much it was and be like, Jesus, I just put 85 grams of syrup on these pancakes. What am I doing? But for whatever reason with these, I don't feel the need to use as much, which is nice. One of the best parts about this recipe is that it's pretty cheap to make. For all the ingredients I used to make the double batch, it only cost me $10.86. That's 45 cents per pancake. For a 3 pancake serving, 32 grams of protein for $1.35, that's pretty solid. These sheet pan protein pancakes are cheap, flavorful, easy to make, and they store well in the freezer, making them a home run pick for Snack City. The full written version of this recipe with all the instructions and ingredients listed is published on mealprepmanual.com, and you can find that link down below in the description. While not quite as protein dense as the original protein pancake recipe from last year, these ones still have a decent amount considering they don't use any protein supplements. And with how easy these are to make, it would almost be rude not to try them out. For more recipes just like this one, check the videos linked on screen now. A link to the recipe for how to make these as well as for the Zwilling Fresh and Safe 7-piece vacuum starter set is included in the description below. Goodbye.